That was fancy. I got some feedback from a friend that it's kind of tough jumping on the stream right away. You get the notification, you go, "Oh crap, that's right." And then you bounce over to whatever platform you're using, YouTube, Twitch, whatever it might be. So, added that little bit. I think I need more than a minute, but that's what we have right now. We have a minute. I didn't remember that until like 20 minutes before. So, that's what we landed on. Steven, like you're gonna guilt trip me into playing the game. So, congratulations. Unfortunately, Steven is the only person that submitted a question in the form. So we'll keep doing that. That's a new thing. It's gonna take time, but it was a little sad that it was just one person. But I knew I could count on Steven. So that sad trombone is not because it's Steven. The sad trombone is because it's just one person. But that's okay. Start small and then grow and grow and grow and grow. So today's potpourri or potpourri, however you prefer to pronounce that word, that can be a giant debate, is based on I've got note cards from previous Ask Me Anything conference talks that Bob and I have done. So we have gone and for conference talks, we just pass out these 3x5 cards, have people write questions on them, and away we go. That's okay. That's okay, David. That's how it starts. That means I got to get better at messaging. So, for those of you that missed the request of the form, if you find it on LinkedIn, that is in the alert that gets sent out before we go live. So there will be a Google form in there for you to submit that in case you can't show up or prefer not to jump in the chat, which that's okay. Not everybody's comfortable doing that. There's crazy people like me that hold on, we got to get everybody else active here. There's crazy people like me that for some reason enjoy it. Okay, so I have grouped. Oh, Twitch does run the ad. Ah, well, as a subscriber, which you could use your Amazon Prime, Twitch Prime subscription, which is free to you as a subscriber, there are no commercials. Yeah. Hint, hint, wink, wink. Okay, so on to the potpourri. I'm going to do a couple, but please jump in whenever you have a question. Don't hesitate. I've got, let's see, 6 different general topics all scattered across my desk of questions that were in the same realm. So I'm going to try and tackle those one at a time, but in that same grouping, just so we can play off of the previous questions, layer on top of things, stuff like that. Uh, Interestingly enough, let's see, back to my captions. We're going to focus on distributed teams. So this was all pre-pandemic. And pre-pandemic, out of I'd say 30 questions that we got that we ran through, there are one, two, three, four, five. So 1/6 of the questions pre-pandemic were all about distributed teams. Can you do it? Is it a thing that will work with Agile? I think we've proven over the last couple of years that where there's a will, there's a way. We've figured it out. There are some folks like me that still believe that we would be better sitting right next to each other, but that's life in the big city. So just general questions and tips for moving to a distributed agile team. There's like three of those that are asking the same questions. So let's see. Things that I think make a difference. I think cameras make a huge difference. Having them on really does make a difference. And you're going to have people that don't want to do it. I've had folks that have a phobia around having their image being captured and on the internet, which, you know, I can understand that. And so they were really against that. But I think cameras are a huge way to make things happen. One of the things that we started doing towards the end of the pandemic, back when I was running product for a company, was we started to get people back together just for a couple of days. And the difference that that made of meeting someone face to face, that was a huge difference maker. And everybody raved about how much better they thought that they were going to be and perform after that time back together. So, yes, you are distributed, but you don't have to live that way forever. Invest in the time and money to get your groups together, and that will pay off hugely. Is hugely a word, but that connection makes a difference. If you can't have it every day, cool, but make it happen at some point and on a regular basis, I think makes it really good. Build in working time, non-working time, just let people be. Let people sit at dinner with each other and talk about random stuff or talk about nothing. Who knows what? That's been a huge lift. Let's see. Other key as a leader, you have to lean into it. You have to be the one that is going to make this work. So you can't be the person that's all sad because we can't be remote, different, or we can't be together, right? Like you have to model. Bob and I talk a lot about modeling the right behavior. This is a huge moment because everybody, everybody was looking at you before, but now when you're talking on Zoom or Google Meet, or I hope not Teams for your sake, whenever you're using one of those, everybody's looking at you and they have a close up of you. So your facial expressions, your responses are even more important than they were before because there's no escaping it. Everybody's eyes are focused strictly on you. Let's see, I'm gonna catch up here. Yeah, Steven, I've got a question about that actually. Yeah, let me highlight that one. It is interesting how this can happen very little, that random get together. That's the thing that I really found a ton of value in was the water curl. Jeez, I cannot talk today. The water cooler talk where you just happen to bump into somebody and talk about something, nothing really, but it made a difference. There was a connection. So you can still create that. I have implemented things where um I think it was called Donut in Slack, where it created random coffee meetings with people across the organization, across the globe, and it would schedule those and give you prompts and talks to make that happen. And that too made a difference. It at least forced it to happen in a virtual world, but definitely in the physical world, don't stop. Okay. So I mean, we've all lived through this, so I'm not gonna spend a whole lot of time on it. If there's things that people have that you wanna really spend time on, then please drop it in the chat. Yes, Mr. Kellogg across departments. That's the one thing that donut did. It was a Slack app. Was it actually picked people specifically not in your team or department? Because as we became a more remote company, the likelihood that I was going to actually see somebody that wasn't in my department went down drastically because you're not walking around, you're not walking to your car, you're not going to lunch, you're not cleaning up after something, who knows what, right? So that can't you can't let that happen. Okay, so that QA one that I forget who added that one. Mr. Kellogg. Let's see. All right, that's not that group. This group. Whoa, look at the auto adjust on the camera there. Yeah, so it's it's from a developer, and they were complaining about their teammates wanting to create a dev and a QA sprint. And the quote is, I want to pull my hair out. So how do you tackle that? So this builds on top of what Steven asked. Um, 'Cause this is a common thing. Number one, there's nothing worse in the world. Well, eh, it kind of, let me rephrase that. As a developer, it's very frustrating to build something, think I'm done with it, find out 2 weeks later that I'm not done with it. And what happens in that scenario when there's a development sprint and then a QA sprint is it just creates all this tension because the QA folks who are just trying to do their job and do a good thing are having to pull people back into something they thought they were done with. And it triggers this very defensive mechanism in developers because now they're like, "Oh crap, I've got this thing I'm already working on. Then you're telling me I got to go fix this thing. Like, prove it to me that it's really broken." Like, I've seen a lot of those things where, as you distance the QA work from the development work, that tension really goes up. So that's a huge issue that you don't want to create, that you don't have to create. Now, I have been at places, and I'm sure I'll be at more places where people will tell me it's impossible to build, test, and deploy in one sprint. I've never been anywhere where that actually was untrue, but it's just a different mindset shift. And oftentimes it does require developers to test because what you're focusing on is getting the most important thing all the way to done. And if we go back to Steven's question, Steven's comment, this is likely a scenario where there was no QA architecture, there was no forethought onto how we can automate these things. And what I have evolved to over the years is QA isn't quality assurance, it's quality assistance. That's something I think Atlassian spearheaded with using that term because there is this unique special skill that QA folks have in finding those edge cases and those weird scenarios that are going to come up and validating that those are actually okay. So just throwing that away and have developers do all of the testing. That'll get you 80% of the way there, but you're going to get stuck with a bunch of weird things. So having what I've had people do is our QA folks help the team. They work with the team, crazy talk, right? They work with the team to define how we're going to test this. How how much is going to be in unit tests? What about our smoke tests? Which ones are we going to run with each build, with every deployment? How is that all going to work? And then usually the QA team has the capability and skill to go and write their own tests that are a part of that suite. They don't write the unit tests. The dev team does that, but that's how I've had success breaking that down and breaking apart that, well, you have to do this, or you weren't doing it fast enough, so I'm going to do it. It's just one of those things where historically I bet none of those people have been at a company that actually does it well. So you have to retrain the culture. You have to build the tools and technology and the mindset for the get for that group to make it happen. Yes, Stephen. You are always going to have to pre-allocate some percentage of the next sprint for the stuff that you could already know about. But you don't want to know about it because you think you're done, and then you throw it over the wall, and then bad things happen. So don't do that. Do not have a silo of QA. Don't throw it over the wall and it's somebody else's problem. We, the team, are responsible for quality. Not this one or two people that are a part of our team, but we don't like to think of them as a part of our team. No, they are a part of the team. We are all responsible for quality. When there's a bug that gets out, it's the entire team's fault. Ooh, quality advisors, kind of like, yeah, I could deal with it. It's the same thing. It's bringing that analytical quality mindset to the team and enabling us to think through the scenarios that we should have, that we should really build out, and also trying to maintain a good pyramid of tests. Right? You think about the pyramid, you've probably seen it. See if I can, I'll search real quick. Oh, this is going to mess up my organization. Ooh, the practical test pyramid. Oh my gosh. Just give me a decent graphic. We'll go with, we'll go with, come on. My friends, things should be easier. There we go. So you should be trying to maintain this pyramid of mostly unit tests. This middle layer service tests, that's a real squishy thing that never gets defined well or consistently across the board. So you're gonna have to fight to define clearly and maintain this service. And then UI tests are your more traditional. I'm walking through, I'm pressing the buttons, I'm replicating data entry, all of that. A lot of that could be done with unit tests in the front end code. So that's where you're going to have to make sure there's clarity on, this is a test in the UI, but it's actually a unit test. So we're not going to get too crazy hung up about it. Okay. Questions? Questions out there? Let's see. We are on teamwork and agile. This is our current trend of potpourri. This is our current flavor of potpourri. I don't know if there's multiple flavors of potpourri I can think of. That flavor I would smell when I go in my grandma's bathroom as a kid. There was this like thing of potpourri. So that, yeah, that's what I think of. I assume there's different flavors that you could conjure up, but I don't really know. So also the throwback Kazi tea. How about that? Working on more stuff for the new logo. So okay, a big one here for teamwork and agile is building trust. So much of Agile success is centered on trust. In fact, the very first episode of the Metacast that Bob and I ever did was about trust. And so this question is from the unnamed viewer. How do you build trust in a team so team members can easily talk about mistakes, failures, dependencies, and impediments? This is a common issue because there so often is not enough trust within a team. So, step one, if you're a leader, you have to model it. And that means you have to extend the trust first. You can't ask people to trust you. You have to extend it and show this is how we trust and highlight it, talk about it, make sure you say, okay, cool. I'm gonna trust you guys on this right now because like that's how this needs to be. It needs to be where you own it and I'm down with it. I got your back, and away we go. Internal to a team, you have to put it on the table. It's one of those things that people aren't intentional about, so it unintentionally ends up in a way they might wish it hadn't. Maybe it'll unintentionally land in the right spot, but most likely it won't. So you have to like grab it by the horns and make it happen. If you have a scrum master on your team, this should be objective number one before you do anything else. Story points, backlogs, it doesn't freaking matter if there's no trust. So scrum masters, if your team does not trust, don't worry about anything else. Nothing else. Nothing. Just fix this issue. I would not do trust falls. That's just a step I wouldn't go there. But number one, you as somebody has to put it on the table in a retrospective, something like that. And then what a good team should do, or you can then model the behavior of, hey, okay, we have this issue. Here's how we're going to try to attack it. And so this sprint, we're going to try doing this. And you get people to trust each other that we're going to try this for 2 weeks or maybe a couple of sprints. One thing that I suggest is finding something that discusses trust and treating it like a book club. I'm huge on that approach because it aligns people on the same thing. So, crucial conversations. What's the other one? Radical candor, things like that, that talk about how to have difficult discussions. So, how to have a difficult discussion when the stakes are high, which likely that's when trust falls out. Is I'm worried that I can't say this in a safe space. I don't really trust that we as a group can handle this. So I'm just not going to say it because it's scary and it's easier for me to just bail on it. So you have to give people the tools because unfortunately, not many people, especially in the workplace, are not provided with the tools of trust. They likely have worked for a very top down organization where there was no trust at all. Everything went up the chain and down the chain and all that nastiness. Right. So the only way that I would say is just take it head on. Don't dance around it. Put it on the table and attack it as a team. Let's see, in the same realm, it's something juicy. Yeah. Okay. So when you have a team stuck in a rut, in parentheses, anti pattern, any tips to jar them out of it? For example, always 2 times over scope, despite metrics saying the ordinary. So you've got a team that just consistently does the same thing over and over again, and they think they're doing well. That's a problem, right? Nobody likes that. I think the jar as a leader, the problem is you've kind of already failed at this point because you've allowed this to happen. But that's okay. That doesn't mean you can't recover. Things are fine. Don't panic. Don't hang your head. That's just okay. So now we have to be honest with ourselves. And if you actually have the data, which this card says they have the data, it's really easy to put facts in front of people that work with logic every day and just get them to simply recognize the logic that is in place and the logic they're choosing to ignore. And then what I have done is I have put a limit on points in a story, not in a story, in a sprint. Like, okay, so every sprint we plan 50 points and we've never hit the daggone thing. In fact, the best we've done is 30. So that means this sprint we're going to plan for 25 points. Very funny, Steven. Very funny. Um, so it's weird. I've talked about this a lot recently in that there's a human condition that I haven't figured out yet where we feel better if we overpromise. So think of the number of sprints any of you have lived with or lived through where you've never delivered on everything that you planned. I bet it's an unfortunately high number. And that's often the truth. And as you talk people through, like, hey, let's plan for 25 points. And they're like, no, 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 we can't do that. We can't do that. We always plan for 50. Okay, but we never hit it. So forget what we plan to do. Let's talk about what we actually do. And then even then you start having people trying to overpack things. And it's always this weird revelation when I tell people, you know what? It's not a bad thing to finish everything before the sprint's over and then just grab the next thing off the backlog. And everybody looks at you like you're freaking crazy, but it's something that was never presented because it was always this we have to do more, 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 more. And doing more doesn't mean planning more. And Agile's not really going to help you do more. It's just going to help you do the right stuff sooner. Um, so, but people have this distortion where I have to have a absolutely packed sprint. And if I don't do that, somebody's going to think I'm like cheating or something's not right. I don't know what's going on. I'm going to get in trouble. So at that point, I take all of the heat. Listen, if anybody gets in trouble for that, then I'll own it all. But I bet if we plan for less, we actually get it done and we have the capability of pulling something in and we're not starting the sprint on day one with this giant panic over our head. We're like, holy crap, how are we going to get this done? So that's a thing that is just unusual. I don't I don't understand it. Okay, last one in our teamwork and agile. So this one is how to keep agile and not revert to waterfall when you have a large, complex feature to deliver in an enterprise SaaS environment. Oh boy, enterprise SaaS, watch out. That's where everything falls apart. Untrue. This is a scenario where your backlog is not broken down small enough. Just because you have this large epic doesn't mean that the stories have to be large. And you can distribute that work across multiple teams. You just have to build a daily mechanism for those teams to stay in sync. I've always done it with what I call a cross team stand up. So representatives from each team after their stand up come and say, hey, here's what we're working on today. Here's what it looks like. Here's the thing that might break what you're doing. Again, it's just another stand up, just Scrum works. Do it again at the next level for everybody working on the same epic across the board. If they, if, if their paths never cross and nobody talks until the end, you're just doing waterfall with agile underneath it. And that's gonna be a disaster at the end. So break that epic down into much smaller pieces, maybe make it two epics. Maybe there's a way to bust that thing into smaller pieces that you're not thinking about. I bet there is. Okay, that's one theme. Well, actually, I hit this one. This one's a cross team dependency. So handle it the same way I just talked about with that cross team or cross squad stand up. Okay, well, we're just going to swing into this. Um, how do you successfully scale Agile across multiple teams on a large product without meeting overload? The issue here is not everybody has to be in every meeting. There's this paranoia within teams of, if I'm not in a meeting at a specific time when a specific thing is discussed, I'm out of loop. I'm going to fail. This project is screwed. Nothing good is going to happen. What you and your teammates have to get good at is being a representative. So we would always send one person to these cross team meetings. So if there ever was a meeting that crossed multiple squads, we didn't have every person on that team show up. We had a single representative show up to represent that team. Now, the thing that we sucked at right out of the gates was that person would go, they would listen, they would talk, they would walk away. Everybody's on the same page. We really sucked at delivering the message back to our teams in an effective manner. It was, oh, yeah, it was good. Here's what's going to happen, blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't, we didn't invest enough there. So you have to really train people and get people to understand the weight of that responsibility of going to be that representative in that important meeting, and make sure you bring everything back. And sometimes it's helpful to sync up with your teammates before you go, just to make sure, hey, is there anything I'm not thinking about? Here's the points I'm going to talk about. Just double check me here with this. So that's how you scale the, as you add layers, meetings and communication are required. Your tool is to not require everybody to be there. So you have to increase your communication skills drastically within your organization. You probably have to communicate differently, potentially use different tools, but it is not going to just magically happen. Okay, if only Bob were here. This one, I've heard polarizing views on safe. Is it useful for a large org, or is there something else to try? So, safe. Should you use it? I did not mean to hit that. That was not the sound I meant to hit. uh, man. Yeah, so no. Bob and I are strictly against safe, um, especially safe the ecosystem that exists. There are bits and pieces of some of the things they recommend that I use. But Bob has informed me they actually stole that from other places. So it's not like they revolutionized the world and came up with these new things that I now use that I incorporate into every place I go. He's like, yeah, they actually took that from XP, or that came from Scrum at Scale, or blah, 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 blah. All of these different things. Like, oh, well, that's even worse. Makes me dislike them even more. Okay. I'm going to hit this one, including I got a half a piece of paper. I don't know. I don't know what happened if they started to write on it and then they were just like, "Oh no, I don't like that," and they ripped it in half and decided to write on it. Okay, so this one actually fits with the other one. How do shared resource teams fit into scaled agile? Um, I don't think they fit anywhere. I work very hard to not have specialty teams, or to not pack all of a specific skill into one shared team, because it's not shared. It's just stacked. So you now have a backlog on top of a backlog, and that doesn't work. So my goal, I got to learn to hold it not in the blurry space. My my goal is to ensure that every team has everything they need to do to build whatever they're asked to. So they have whatever that shared resource is. Maybe it's not a whole human. Now, that doesn't mean you share people across multiple teams. It's just you have somebody that knows enough about that to get the ball rolling. Yeah, there might be an expert over on another team. They can go talk to them, but they should be able to implement it within the team. If you extract implementation from your team, then you're not able to actually deliver on getting things done. You can deliver it to some state, and then you're dependent on somebody else. We all know about dependencies and the challenges there. All right. This group I just labeled "Help, my company is broken." Oh, gosh. So, any suggestions for management more interested in story completion than quality? I generally address this issue by presenting whoever management or the leadership is with a choice. And there are some companies where they say, yes, we're willing to take that. So what I do is I talk about, you're likely going to be able to show some facts about these are the number of bugs that we create with each shipment that we send out. That means we are reducing, just like we talked about earlier. See if I can find that chat way back at the beginning, where we're going to have to reserve 20 to 30% of every sprint to fix the bugs that we created in previous sprints. So we can continue to do that. Not only are we doing that, but we're frustrating our customers because they're having to log bugs. We can continue to do that, or we can invest more upfront in our quality and reduce that number down to like 5%. And oh, by the way, our customers are going to be happier and they're going to turn around and say, well, you guys have really improved the software. How about that? Which type of customer do you think would be more willing to buy another one of your products? No question there. So it always works when you present it in terms they understand. Don't walk in with a number of tests or some test metrics. Don't do any of that. That eyes will glaze over and nothing good will come out of that. You have to put it in the terms that they live and work in every day. So represent, as Stephen said, the value not only to the customer, but to the company that is created and the frustrations that it will create. And then the follow-up cost that is there. So, okay, when a customer logs a bug, it has to travel through these three departments. So the fewer we can do of that, the less we're spending across the entire organization. So you just have to highlight the costs of a bug and as it travels through the organization and the mindset it puts our customers in. So it is value, because that's what we're here to deliver, not software, value. Okay. How do you balance coaching and mentoring with a team? For example, telling a team how to do something versus them discovering it on their own. Ooh, that is a doozy. Do you have any good sounds for a doozy? Um, that's a doozy of a question. That air horn is now our doozy question alert. This, my friend, whoever you were, however many years ago, in whatever location across the country you were when you wrote this down, this is the secret sauce. I see a lot of newly minted agile leaders that over rotate on waiting for the team to discover the answers on their own. What you're choosing to do at that point is you take all of your expertise, all of your knowledge, and you just put it on a shelf. The company can't get any value from it. Your team can't get any value from it. You start to wonder, what value do I add here? Why, what, why am I here? Um, so it is just a balancing act. Balance is the right word that's in this question. It's a balancing act of enabling the team with the knowledge that you have, bringing the value. Like that's why we hired you. That's why we put you in this position, because you have experience and knowledge that can help the team. You cannot over help the team. So you can't become that helicopter parent that doesn't let their kid go out of their sight. And therefore, the kid doesn't know what to do when the parent isn't there. So you have to walk that balance of giving them just enough freedom to figure things out, but not let it crash and burn. So what I think about is I think about a set of guardrails that are on a road. And when the team starts, the guardrails are pretty narrow because you don't know much about the team. They don't know much about themselves. They don't know much about what they're building. So your guardrails where as you see them start to veer off course, you kind of tap them back in a line a lot more often. As that team matures, you start to widen the guardrails. And now they have a lot more distance to weave and try things and almost run off the road, but not completely run off the road. They didn't hit the guardrail, so you just leave them alone. And over time, the guardrails get wider and wider. They even go around the microphone. They get wider and wider and wider to where that team really feels like they're doing it 100% themselves, which they are and they should be, but they also know that you're always there. They are fearless because they know you have their back. They know if something really bad happens, you're going to be there. So that's how you have to walk that balancing act and really understand the evolution of a team and be able to identify the moments like, okay, I'm going to pull back a little bit here because they're doing some good things, but there's still some trouble out there. We can't just, take the guardrails off and run into the trees. That the the questions solution, that's a weird thing to say. Question solution that Steven shares, that's something that I always challenge new leaders to do. And new leaders want the team, they view it as their responsibility for the team to get to the answer as quickly as possible. And oftentimes, the way you can do that is by just telling them the answer. Here's how we're going to build it. Here's what we're going to do. Here's the technology. Boom, done. Oh, and if you need me to, build a whatever, I got you covered. You then create dependency. So then what you're asking this person to do is you're asking to lead the team to the answer. Oftentimes that's in the form of questions. It can get frustrating for that team when that person is just asking in questions only. Now, I have challenged people. I said, you're only allowed to talk in this meeting with questions. The good thing is that in those scenarios, I've shared with the team, like, hey, this is a thing. We have a problem. We have a dependency on Stu. Stu knows everything. He's trying to do the right thing by getting us to the answer as quickly as possible. But that reduces the frequency that everyone else has to operate to figure things out. So I'm going to ask Stu to work only in questions. And then your job is to lead people to that answer. But there's no silver bullet. There is no magic set of words that you can say or wand that you can Wingardium Leviosa. There just isn't. That's the hard work. That's why so many teams fail because their leader, their manager, whoever it is, just says, "Oh, it's easier. It's easier if I just do it." The moment you hear that as an agile coach, you know you got to push in and fix that problem because you're going to create this dependency. Okay, I am going to shut my face, stop talking at you, turn off this little advertisement for Josh. Anything we need to talk about. I will even take a drink of water to make sure I don't talk. Okay, I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna check my email. No one? Nothing? Okay. Well, I yapped for 45 minutes. We will do this, uh, Stephen. They are ordered. I approved the proof earlier this week, I think, or over the weekend. So yeah, hats are coming with the logo. I've got another business that's kind of behind the scenes, like a production company. I'm also getting the logo for that. So yes, that is happening. Okay, so to wrap up, next week, same time, noon Eastern, I will create the event as soon as I can. I will work to highlight the opportunity to insert slash deposit questions before the time. So that way, if you can't make it, you're good to go. Or if you don't want to chat on screen, that's fine. You don't have to do that. And if anybody is looking for like some cool guy with some pretty nice hats and t-shirts to come in and help your company, let me know. Just hit me up on the website, kazi.io. You can schedule time. We'll work it out, see what happens. So with that, I thank everyone for showing up. Classic Steady Eddie style with Stephen Kellogg, 22. All right. We'll see everybody next week.